Welcome back to the Rock Room and another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast, where we help men successfully navigate the divorce process in a healthy way. I'm your host, Stephen Valente. If you're like me, you are feeling unmotivated or distracted while you're at work. You may be noticing a decline in your job performance during the divorce process. You may be wondering, what is your company or what is your employer going to think when they find out that you're going through divorce? Or you may be concerned that this divorce is going to affect your ability for promotion and future professional success. Well, if that sounds like you, then you are absolutely in the right place. Because in today's episode, we're going to talk about the top 4 things that you can do to ensure professional success during and after your divorce. If that sounds like something you're interested in, then plug in, turn it up, and let's hit the stage. Okay, so as we talk about on this podcast, there are 7 key areas of your life that if you focus on them each and every day, you will not only be able to navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but you will absolutely succeed and thrive afterwards. The visual that I normally give is that of a 7-channel mixing board, right? And each of those channels represents one of the key areas of your life, and the faders themselves are the amount of time, effort, and energy that you have to put in, sometimes hour by hour or day by day, to each of those 7 key areas. Now, as we've talked about in the past, it's impossible, especially during the divorce process, to find an equal balance across all 7 in your life. And in some cases, hour by hour or day by day, you may have to give more or take away less with each of those 7 key areas, right? So that's why the faders are very important when it comes to that. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the 6th fader, or your professional part of your life. And a little phrase I like to use is finding peace in productivity, right? So what does that mean? Well, in doing some research, statistics show that divorce comes to men a lot of times either after a major medical, either a sickness or an accident or a major medical event, or a job loss. And I can't really explain it. I'm still trying to learn about the psychology behind it with women and why they would, after one or both of those major events, why they would file for divorce. And I'm not sure there's an absolute correlation between the two, but it's a very interesting topic that we'll hit at some point here on the Rock Your Divorce podcast. But with that in mind, maybe you were one of those men who had a job loss, and now all of a sudden you are faced with divorce. So I'll kind of put that out there as maybe you're one of those already that are going through a divorce process because you lost your job. However, what I am finding and what I have found through both research and men that I'm coaching is that there is a significant impact on men and their professional lives during the divorce process and once that's done. So one of the statistics that I found is that there's a 35% increase in absenteeism with men that are going through divorce or after divorce. And when you take a look at kind of the why behind it, it makes sense, right? Mentally, you're distracted. Emotionally, you're run down. You may have depression. You may have anxiety. So your mental and emotional health absolutely impacts you when you get up in the morning, or if you get up in the morning to go to your job. And, it really kind of depends on how everything plays out in your life. But to reduce your ability to go to work, 35 or 40% of the time, of course, it's going to have an impact on how your employer or in your job performance. And that kind of leads to the second statistic, which is you're going to see during your divorce process, on average, a 30% reduction in your job performance and in your productivity while you're going through divorce and even after. And again, it's not surprising that men have this kind of distraction that's going on. They're feeling overwhelmed, and this weight of what the divorce means, the loss of the marriage, most likely the loss of having their children live with them, the increased financial pressures, of what this divorce will look like once it's done, right? Child support, alimony, losing, half of your marital estate. So there is a feeling of depression and anxiety and loss, and all of that is a distraction during the day when we're supposed to be performing at our best in our professions. Some of the other statistics that I saw showed that there is a level of discrimination, or if you want to talk about like loss of promotions or loss of advancement, when men go through divorce, and some of that is included or because of what I had talked about just previously. So you're not showing up to your job, or when you show up to your job, you're not performing in the way that you should be performing. Let's not be surprised when your employers are saying, you know what, he's probably not ready for this promotion. Or, you know what, the statistics show that 20% of us will be unemployed after the first year of being divorced, which is staggering to think about because, for 1 in 5 of us going through this divorce or immediately after this divorce, at some point, you're going to lose your job. And a lot of that is based on all the things that we had just talked about, right? You're distracted, you're not performing well, you may not even be showing up. Okay. So we as men have to realize and understand that our profession and our ability to provide not only for our family prior to the divorce was important, it's extremely important after, because the financial responsibilities that you're going to have typically and statistically as a man after this divorce are much greater than when you were married, right? So having the ability to not only maintain your employment, but also succeed and grow and thrive in your profession is going to give you many other things besides just the financial aspect of it that are going to help you thrive after the divorce is done. So, in my case, I've kind of seen both sides. So I'll give you some examples in a story. I've been in medical device sales for over 20 years. I have managed teams. I have managed people. And I have seen both sides of this equation. I have managed individuals who've been on my team that have gone through either very rocky places in their marriage, and most of them led to divorce or were divorcing during that. And then as an employee of my current company, I went through my divorce. So I knew both sides kind of coming into this. And quite frankly, I was a bit afraid to let everyone know or to have somebody find out that not only was I entering this process, but the length of the process as it went on. Now, I didn't tell anybody about, at work anyway, about 2 years prior to me filing for divorce, everything that was going on or the things that we as a family were going through. But it really came down to after I filed for divorce and after the legal process started. Some of you will go through the interrogatories process, which is part of the legal. I will tell you that we're going to spend a lot of time in subsequent episodes about each stages of some of those documents and whether it's leading up to mediation or leading up to a trial if you have a trial. So be on the lookout for much more detailed episodes related to all of those processes along the way. But some of you may be familiar with having to fill out interrogatories, or maybe some of you are getting ready to get into that process of filling out interrogatories in your divorce. And one of the questions that it asked was, who is your employer? Who is your manager? And what is their contact information? So it was at that time that I decided, before I put my boss's name and contact information and everything else on a legal document, I needed to let him know, right? And first and foremost, I am so blessed to have a tremendous, I'll call him my boss, but he's a leader, he's a coach, he's an all-around great guy, right? So I was much more comfortable in going into this conversation with him than maybe some of you would be talking to your boss, right? If you own your own business, then it really doesn't matter, right? Because you're the boss. But I don't own my own business, right? I work for an organization. So anyway, I ended up, prior to putting his name and contact information and everything else on the interrogatories, I scheduled time with him. And that was really the first time that I let him know, just on the peripheral, right? I didn't get into details. I didn't, tell the big story. I just let him know kind of what was going on in my life and kind of what was leading up to it from a timeline perspective, and that I had to put his name and I had to put his contact information on this legal document, right? This interrogatories document. And then we started talking a little bit about setting expectations, right? And the expectations really focused more on timing. I work from home. I'm kind of an independent, right? So I kind of do my job. And as long as I do my job, my employer is not, they don't really care about, all the other intricacies of each and every day, hour by hour, what I'm doing. But what I did let him know was there were going to be some limitations. I may have to take some time, whether it was court hearings, whether it was depositions, whether it was, hey, now we're starting to do this temporary parenting plan where I need to pick the kids up from school, or I need to take the kids here and there. And I may be out of pocket, right? I might be, the timing is going to change a little. So it gave me the opportunity to kind of set those expectations with him and to talk through what his expectations of me were as I go through the process. Now, the benefit too was that he's already been part of a management team that has dealt with this in the past, right? There was no need to go to human resources. At the time, I didn't need any human resource, help, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, about some of the resources that you can get through your employer during your divorce. But I didn't really need to do that. I just needed to set a general expectation with him, letting him know, and he was amazing about it, right? He was amazing, just said, hey, just keep me posted. If there's anything that you need, let me know. And quite frankly, as long as I was doing my job and performing in the way that I needed to perform, it really should not have mattered. And that's when I think for me, and each of you are going to go through this, you can take a look at the statistics that I showed you. Absenteeism, a drop in performance, maybe not necessarily putting yourself out there for promotions or advancement. You have that one side of the coin where you allow the divorce process to manage you during your workday. Then you have the other side. And the other side says that, this is where it goes back to the mental portion of getting through the divorce process, right? The number 2 key area of your life, which is mental. And that was saying, I am not going to let what's going on in my life affect this workday piece, right? And that's when I chose the phrase that I offered to you earlier on in the episode, which is I need to find my peace in productivity, right? Because, if you start taking a look at things like mental toughness and not allowing your emotions to get to you, not being distracted, or finding healthy ways to fill the time so you don't recede back into negative behaviors, negative habits. You have to put that energy that you have, right? You have to put that energy to either good use or not so good use. And I'm encouraging you to put it toward good use. Find your peace in productivity. Take a look at what your job is, your career is, and make that part of where that negative energy goes so that you can utilize that in the positive. Because ultimately, you are going to have a life after. You need to get through this divorce process in a healthy way. And what you can't do is you can't become a statistic by showing that after the first year or during the divorce and after the first year, you're going to lose your job 20% of the time. Okay, so that doesn't help anybody, first and foremost from you, secondly from your children, and good, bad, right, or wrong, the court is going to make sure that you're paying those bills regardless if you have a job or not, right? You don't have a choice on those. So the best thing that you can do is to harness and channel that energy, right? Make a mental decision that you are not going to fall to the side of the absenteeism and the decrease in job performance and looking at it as I'm not going to put myself out there for promotions or I'm not ready yet or whatever, and take a different approach, right? Have a positive mental attitude to say, you know what? I'm not going to let this slow me down. In fact, I'm going to channel this energy into something much more productive and drive my success professionally so that I have opportunity when this thing is done. And, I know speaking for me, it gave me an outlet, right? I have always been, my profession, I've always loved what I've done. I've been good at what I've done. And I think that had helped me to even turn up the volume a little bit more when it came to, okay, well, what do I do with this time when I'm not with the kids? What do I do with this time instead of insomnia, right? I have to find other things. Well, it wasn't just my job, right? It was some of the healthy things that you and I are talking about here in the 7 areas. But I did focus on my profession, right? And I did focus on things that are going to bring me a return, whether that's promotional success or financial success or whatever it is after, instead of the negative, instead of going to the bars, instead of swiping on dating apps and, doing all those other things. So what did it do for me? Well, I am proud to say that in the midst of everything that was going on in my life, right? Trying to hold it all together, going through the divorce process, trying to do things the right way, make the right decisions, do the right thing, be the man that God had intended me to be for myself, for my children, and for those that I loved. I had an opportunity to really succeed that year in my career. And, the picture that you're going to see on the screen is me accepting the Director of the Year with my company. And, this was really less about winning the award, although the award was awesome to win. But it really was something for me that was kind of a culmination of taking that self-doubt, taking all the fears and the anxiety and the depression that I was feeling early on, and making a conscious choice to set myself a goal. And that goal was, I'm not going to let all of this noise get the best of me, right? In fact, I'm going to channel everything that I'm feeling, all the things that I'm going through, everything that I'm managing. And I kept telling myself throughout this process, and I even joke about it now with people, that I'm totally built for this, right? Like I am built for this. I can handle it. There's not a whole lot that you can throw at me now that's going to set me, kind of spinning off, and I encourage each of you to reach down deeply and find that motivation. For me, it was my children, right? For me, it has always been about my children. It's going to always be about my children, that I am going to set an example for them. I'm going to show them that, you can get through things and you can really succeed and thrive based on you making the choice instead of the negative to turn it to the positive. So, yes, the award was great and everything else, but it was really like, you know what? Even in the midst of all of this that's going on in my life, I could still succeed and I can still put my mind to it and I can still achieve. And that meant a lot to me. So that was the director of the year. Okay. So what can we do, or what can I help you do when it comes to finding those top 4 things that you can implement either right as you start the divorce process or during the divorce process that's going to help you succeed professionally, not only during, but after? As I said before, we are going to do specific episodes when it comes to these 4 topics, providing much greater detail, tips, tricks, little things that you can implement. Those are going to be subsequent episodes. So take a look for those in the future. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that we were going to dive into these each individually a little bit more in other episodes. But let's talk about the 4 things that you can do to ensure that you're professionally successful, not only during this divorce process, but absolutely when you thrive afterwards. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to schedule a one-on-one meeting with your employer. Now, I will tell you that depending on your professional relationship with your current manager and your company, you might want to take that into consideration prior to doing this. But by and large, most of you have good relationships with your direct manager or with your employer, and it's not going to cause any issue by letting them know what's going on in your life, right? And what I will say is, in my case, it really gave me that opportunity to set the expectations with my immediate supervisor. So he knew kind of what was going on. He knew what, I might need a little extra time here or there, or, if something's going on, I was going to let him know. But meeting directly one-on-one, not just, flippantly saying to your boss, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going through a divorce. It really sets the tone. It really sets a more professional tone with your employer, with your direct manager, that you realize that this is going on in your personal life. You're letting them know that it's not going to affect your professional life, right? And it allows you to do that. But it also sparks some conversation related to maybe there are resources within your company, whether it's your HR department, whether it's, third-party benefits, where you can take advantage of some of those things that are available to you during this divorce process and afterwards. So take a look at that. We're going to talk again more detailed in other episodes about this. The third thing that I'll say about letting your employer know, there are some instances, especially in high conflict divorces, where your soon-to-be former wife or your former wife, depending on where you are in the divorce process, chooses to wreak havoc to you and your through your employer. So I say all of that to say, not in all cases, but I am familiar with certain cases, and I have seen it in the past, where for whatever reason, whether it's being vindictive or angry, or maybe they have some mental disorders or whatever it is, they will try to cause as much harm and havoc in your life through your job itself and through your employer. Why, I don't know, but that's another episode. But it also helps you, prevent that, or at least mitigate the issues related to that if you let your employer know, hey, this is going on. I'm going through this divorce. You may see it. It may pop up, kind of setting those expectations and guidelines. So again, you're going to schedule a formal one-on-one meeting with your supervisor and in your company. The second thing that we talked about that you need to do is make that mental mindset a priority, right? And we've talked about, fader number 2 and the second key area of your life, which is your mental portion of your life, your mental health. But this is absolutely where you make the decision that you're not going to let what's going on in your personal life affect your professional success. And this is really about the development of resilience and fortitude and some of the things that we've talked about already in subsequent episodes, or in the past episodes. We're going to talk about them in subsequent episodes. But it's really developing all of those skill sets that you're going to need as a man in resilience and in having that fortitude to get through the mental difficulties that you're going to face, not only during this divorce process, but afterwards, right? And some of that deals with your positive mental attitude each and every day, right? We've already talked about things like gratitude and positivity and utilizing all of these things that we're learning here on the Rock Your Divorce podcast to get up each and every day, to be thankful and grateful for where we are. We're being positive about what's going on. Although things are difficult, it is a short season of your life. You have so much more for yourself and your children and your future to be thankful for and to be positive about, that you don't want, each and every day to go into work and have a negative attitude, to be in a bad mood, to have it affect your job performance, right? This is a mental game. So I encourage you to look yourself in the mirror as a man, to have that conversation with yourself about absolutely refusing to let this divorce process throw you off your game. And in fact, what you're going to do is you're going to turn it around. You're going to take this negative thing that's going on in your life, and you're going to move it to a positive, and you're going to harness all that energy and focus all that energy that could be given to negative things toward the positive. And it just so happens that in this case, it's your profession. The third thing that you're going to do is you're going to set time dedicated to your profession, right? So I've already had an episode on what's called set lists, or setting your daily agenda, why it's important to schedule specific time each and every day for the things that are important to you. It just so happens that in this case, it's your profession, it's your professional career, right? It's your ability to earn income. So you need to take that time, and you need to be dedicated while you're doing your job to doing your job. Yes. Are you going to get text messages from your soon-to-be former wife or former wife? Yes. If they happen to deal with your children immediately, then of course take it. If not, deal with it at another time. Your attorney the same way. If it's urgent, if it's absolutely urgent, then yes, you're going to take advantage of that. But if not, set some time aside each and every day to deal with that, right? While you're at work or while you're doing your job, you need to be very focused, to be very intentional about doing that job. You don't want your job performance to whether it's the 30% reduction in your performance or whatever it is, you don't want it to do that. So take the time to do your job when you're at your job, and you'll be better off for that. And the fourth thing that you can do, and we're going to have an entire episode about this, it's really setting goals and setting yourself up for future success, right? And whether that's, yearly goals, both personal and professional goals, or things like creating vision boards, or sitting down and having those discussions with your boss about, longer term professional goals and what you need to do to get there, you must include that in your professional life, right? Because we all have goals. We all have things that we want to accomplish and do. And you have to make it a point to have those types of conversations with your employer especially your direct boss, on how are you going to advance? How are you going to get promoted? How are you going to continue to earn more and more? It may be with this extra time, dealing with your employer and having that job performance discussion, but you may choose to start a business on the side. You may get a side hustle. You may have to get a side hustle depending on the financial aspects of your divorce. Regardless of that, you really start to make goals and vision settings a priority in your profession so that you can succeed not only during this divorce process, but well after, as you thrive when it's done. Now, if there's anything that I've said to you today that's either struck a chord or resonated with you that you'd like to learn some information about, please feel free. Head on over to www.rockyourdivorce.com. Schedule a free 30-minute phone call with me because I know that I can help you not only navigate this divorce process in a healthy way, but absolutely succeed afterwards. And while you're there, like and subscribe to the Rock Your Divorce podcast. And if you know of other men that are either currently in the divorce process, maybe they've just started or they're already kind of going through this, or men that have recently been divorced but still have not yet been thriving after this is done, I encourage you to send them here to the Rock Room so that they can learn more about navigating the divorce process in a healthy way and succeeding and thriving after. That's it for today's episode. I thank you for joining me here in the Rock Room. I'll see you next time for another episode of the Rock Your Divorce podcast.